I will walk you through a very interesting subject matter of Neo-Marxism, and how, through its classical and cultural beliefs, has been able to touch every bit of political history, economics, and sociology. As we begin, some of you may think that Neo-Marxism, as the term may connote, would mean new Marxist concepts. Though this may be somehow true, it is best to go back and understand its proponent, the German philosopher, Karl Marx. Karl Marx was born in Prussia, Germany, in 1818. Karl Marx became known by his books, The Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital, which he may have published together with his closest collaborator, Friedrich Engels. But before we can move to understand Neo-Marxism, let us summarize the thoughts and philosophies of his books. In his writings, Karl Marx believed that there are stages of history. To him, history began with the ancient, or so-called primitive communism, where no one exploits anyone else, and everyone was roughly equal. Then there was slavery as the second stage, wherein the great warrior kings from ancient Babylon, Egypt, and Rome exploited the work of the masses and slaves. The next was feudalism. In this stage, the monarch and small numbers of nobles exploited the peasants who tilled and worked in the lands. It is during this period that the middle-class merchants and the industrialists, known as the bourgeois capitalists, clamored that the country should benefit from businesses and not agriculture. Hence, the bourgeoisie revolution took place and seized power from the monarchs and the nobles. The bourgeoisie revolution resulted in capitalism, paving the way to private enterprise ownership. Now, factories, mines, banks, and the likes are either owned or run by capitalists, who abused and exploited the workers, referred to by Marx as the proletariats. Karl Marx believes that there exists a democratic government where proletariats have the right to vote. But he emphasized that even with this, it is the bourgeoisie that runs that democratic country. And so the proletariats will awaken and rise up in a revolution to throw out their masters and end the bourgeoisie era. Marx strongly believed that the workers of the world will unite to release them from the chains of exploitation and finally achieve the final stage of history, which is the workers' state. This stage is more popularly referred to as communism. To Karl Marx, this is the final and perfect stage of human history where private property is abolished. Lastly, in this final stage, everyone is equal. No one exploits anyone else. Everyone shall live, from each according to his abilities, and state rewards everyone, to each according to his needs. The death of Karl Marx in 1883 brought so many questions after the proletariat revolution never happened on a scale that Marx has envisioned. And today, without any doubt, capitalism continues to be a thriving form of the world economy. So if you ask, what could have caused these? To answer, let us now move forward to Neo-Marxism. Years after the death of Karl Marx, a neo-Marxist who adored and criticized Marx in the name of Antonion Gramsci introduced a theory that will aid our understanding. Gramsci was the head of the Italian Communist Party, who was imprisoned by the Mussolini regime. During his time in prison, he wrote essays on thousands of pages. But one of the most important of all Gramsci's theories is that he expounded Karl Marx's proletariat idea, explaining why a world-scale workers' revolution did not materialize. And though he called this the theory of ideology with the concept of hegemony, it was later referred to as the theory of hegemony. Antonio Gramsci believes in the theory that the relationship of the proletariat or subaltern classes and the ruling class or capitalist bourgeois is hegemonic in nature and process. Hegemony, to Gramsci, is a consent that is secured by the diffusion and popularization of the worldview of the ruling class, thus giving them dominance. This would mean the proletariat consents to be ruled. The process of hegemony is simply consent. Once the ruling class is able to disseminate their ideas and thoughts to the lower class, they gain consent, hence, hegemony is consummated. This is sometimes called the hegemonic process. Gramsci thinks that just by living their daily lives, the working class is consenting to be ruled. The explanation is that there is no coercion, and that this is common sense consent and happens every second of every day of every people's life. The expression of hegemony, as Gramsci expounded, is a common daily thing, even without really thinking or working or asking for it. The consent is unknowingly handed by the proletariat to the ruling class through the normal activities of life, whether it's connected to media, work, to school, family, or even the church. The crucial for Gramsci and his process of hegemony is that it is never ending. It is ongoing process, and there is no need for force or coercion. The working class voluntarily submits themselves to the ruling class, almost without any opposition. So how then can the subaltern classes or proletariat succeed? Well, if the battleground in Marxism is the mode of production or economics, where the bourgeoisie is at the top of capitalism, and that communism will be the result in which the working class will take power. But for Gramsci, the fight takes place at the ideological level. Hence, the subaltern classes or proletariat must have a counter-hegemony and engage themselves in the ideological level in the hegemonic process. For hegemony is the battle of whose ideas become accepted in the society, and make their ideas more powerful than the ideas of the ruling class in order to overturn the current hegemony. To Gramsci, it is only this way that the subaltern classes or proletariat can take control of social, ideological, and normative powers. Antonion Gramsci believes that there is no final set of ideologies, and that this is always the battleground, that there will always be new ideologies that may come. But the important thing to know is that an armed revolution is not necessary. Because if you control hegemony, then you have the consent, the privilege, the power that subjects others to you. Another group considered to be a neo-Marxist is the Frankfurt School. This refers to a collection of scholars who are known to develop a critical theory and popularize the dialectic method of learning by interrogating society's contradictions. Some of their main critical works were derived from a synthesis of the teachings of Karl Marx. According to the Frankfurt School, the society was getting and receiving so much information from mass media, and with the radios and television coming out during that time, mixing with newspapers and popular essays, people became less cautious about each other. In fact, they were not really interacting and associating as much as before, or as needed to spur a revolution. The Frankfurt School was concerned about mass media, which can influence the individual to distance oneself from others. Because of media, people are becoming unreceptive recipients of political and ideological information, and instead of participating as activists, it has made the people intellectually inactive and politically passive. As cited by the Frankfurt School, the media culture has affected greatly as to why the final stage of history, which is communism, was not achieved. The people were too preoccupied with what the mass media had to say, not knowing that the mass media is either owned or controlled by the capitalists. Lastly, the working class somehow accepted capitalism, thereby forgetting about exploitation and revolution. Thank you and good day.